Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a 12,000-year-old cold case, the sudden disappearance of the majestic giants that once shared the Earth with early humans. To really unpack what happened, we're going to look at this through what we call the CUTE framework. That stands for curiosity about a profound mystery, urgency regarding modern extinction and de-extinction, tension between competing scientific theories, and emotion over the genuine loss of these animals. We'll use this lens to figure out exactly what happened to the rulers of the Ice Age. Let's start right off the bat with the emotion of this event. Before we dig into the hardcore science, we really need to grasp the sheer physical presence of an animal like the woolly mammoth. We are talking about a creature towering up to 3.4 meters at the shoulder and weighing a massive 6 tons. To put that into perspective, that's like 2 large SUVs stacked together. And those tusks, they could curve inwards for 4 meters. Just think about the sheer scale of that biological achievement for a second. And, their size wasn't even their biggest advantage. Genomic data shows us they weren't just lumbering beasts. They were highly intelligent, cognitively complex herd animals. They lived in these deep, matriarchal societies, much like modern elephants do today, complete with long-term memory and really strong social bonds. They had successfully adapted to dozens of massive climate shifts over hundreds of thousands of years, literally surviving ice age after ice age. But the mammoth was just one piece of the puzzle. They were part of an entire vanished ecosystem. Picture this. You had 3-ton giant ground sloths that could rear up on their hind legs to eat from tree canopies 10 meters up in the air. You had the short-faced bear, standing eye level with a modern human when it was just down on all fours and capable of sprinting at 70 kilometers per hour. No way you're outrunning that. Plus, you had forest-dwelling American mastodons and, of course, the infamous ambush predator, the saber-toothed cat. This brings us perfectly to the curiosity elements of our framework. Across North America alone, 35 genera of these large mammals disappeared in what amounts to a geological instant, roughly 12,000 years ago. They didn't just slowly fade away over millions of years. They vanished right at the boundary of a period called the Younger Dryas. And that sudden exit has sparked a 50-year academic debate over what actually caused it.
Part 1. 3 Competing Extinction Hypotheses.
To impartially unpack this, we have to look at the tension in the scientific community. Right now, there are 3 major overlapping hypotheses. First up, we have Paul Martin's overkill theory. This points the finger at newly arrived humans hunting naive prey in a rapid blitzkrieg. Second is the climate theory, which argues that the massive sudden temperature drop of the Younger Dryas destroyed the vast grasslands these animals depended on. And third, the impact theory, which suggests a comet strike triggered continent-wide ecological disruption, setting catastrophic fires and forcing the climate to shift.
So who's right? Well, the evidence actually shifts depending on where you look on the map. The geographic data reveals a pretty stark contrast. Africa retained 70% of its megafauna. Why? Because those animals co-evolved with humans over millions of years. They developed natural fear responses. But look at continents where humans arrived abruptly, like Australia losing 90% and North America losing 70%. We saw rapid megafaunal collapses there. It's a very hard pattern to ignore.
But science is rarely just one simple answer, right? The most accepted synthesis today points to a multi-causal event. Basically, a 1-2 punch. Animal populations were already severely stressed and their habitats were fragmenting because of rapid climate shifts. And then they were pushed definitively over the edge into extinction by the entirely novel pressure of human hunting. They might have survived one of those stressors, but both hitting at exactly the same time, that was catastrophic.
Part 2. The Wrangel Island Experiment.
Now, to really test the human versus climate variables, we have to look at a remote spot in the Arctic called Wrangel Island, way up north of Siberia. A population of dwarf mammoths actually survived there for 6 millennia past the mainland extinction. Think about that for a second. They were still walking around while the Egyptian pyramids were being built. This proves they successfully outlasted the Younger Dryas climate collapse. They survived post-glacial warming completely on their own. Because of its extreme isolation, Wrangel Island is basically nature's own controlled experiment for this debate. They survived the shifting world entirely insulated from human contact. Now, to be fair, genetic analysis does show they were struggling a bit. They'd accumulated some deleterious mutations from inbreeding because of their small population size. But the key takeaway is they were surviving. But here's where we hit the uncomfortable reality. As soon as the physical evidence shows human beings finally arriving on the island around 3,500 years ago, the very last mammoths on Earth vanished within centuries.
It really forces us to grapple with the heavy moral weight of this pattern. Survival through massive climate shifts, followed by almost immediate extinction upon human contact.
Part 3. Ghost landscapes and avocados.
So this mass extinction didn't just empty the world of large animals. It left these deep ecological voids that we still interact with today. Ecologist Paul Martin coined this brilliant term, ghost landscapes. It describes environments populated by plants that evolved highly specific traits to live alongside giant animals. When the giants vanished, the plants stuck around, still carrying these evolutionary adaptations for a world that literally no longer exists.
You can actually see this phenomenon right in your own kitchen. Grab an avocado, look at the massive size of that seed, and ask yourself, what native animal was physically capable of swallowing that huge thing whole to disperse it? The answer is nothing. Nothing alive today in its native habitat can do it. It turns out the avocado evolved specifically to be eaten and dispersed by massive, elephant-like creatures called gomphotheres. It only persists today because early humans found it delicious and stepped in to cultivate the fruit after its intended disperser died out. So every time you eat guacamole, you're eating an evolutionary anachronism, a true ghost of the megafauna. Part 4. Bringing back the mammoths.
This brings us to the urgency element of our framework. The loss of these giants transformed entire continents. Up in the Arctic, the absence of large grazers caused the highly productive mammoth steppe to collapse into unproductive tundra. And here is why this matters to us right now. Without large herds trampling the snow and exposing the ground to the deep winter cold, the permafrost is currently destabilizing. As it warms, it threatens to release approximately 1.5 trillion tons of carbon. That is roughly twice the amount currently in our atmosphere. The mammoth's absence is a very active variable in our modern climate crisis. To combat this thawing permafrost, a company called Colossal Biosciences is stepping in. They are actively using CRISPR gene editing to introduce cold-adapted mammoth traits, like the thick hair and heavy fat insulation, directly into the Asian elephant genome. Their goal isn't just to make a biological clone for a zoo, but to produce a functional mammoth to ecologically replace the lost grazers and restore that ancient steppe environment. But obviously, this prompts a deeply unresolved ethical debate. Is returning an engineered mammoth proxy to the Arctic our ecological responsibility? Is it a form of restitution for Paul Martin's ancient overkill? Or is it a massive overreach into natural systems, a profound form of scientific hubris? As we evaluate the evidence in this explainer, we must grapple with a profound truth. We inherited a world radically shaped by these vanished giants, and we are left to decide what to do with their ghost landscapes. We know everything about them except why we are here and they are not. Are we the inheritors of a natural tragedy, or the descendants of the greatest hunters the world has ever seen? I'll leave you to ponder that as we wrap up today's exploration.